I'm going to call this meeting of the Personnel and Animal Welfare Committee to order. Myself and Councilmember Smith present, so we have a quorum. And I'm going to begin by taking public comment. First, Wayne Spindler, who has 1 minute of general public comment and 2 minutes to cover every item on the agenda.
All right, clear my throat. Okay, so now here we go. The fire department's public safety. Now, did you know that the spokesman for the LAFD is not exempting himself in the proper manner? Because the spokesman likes to take and play with cars and falsely arrest people. So on item number 4, no more exemptions for these fire department personnel. Because what you did was you exempted the spokesman's position for Mr. Sanders' little bastard son, who turned out to be mentally retarded. Now we get to IDEX. Let's see, we got a IDEX Laboratories on number 8 for testing services. Well, that's an appropriate name. I mean, we're going to have DNA tests for IDEX Laboratories, Inc. That's a good name. They're doing a good job on testing laboratory services. Yes, they test for scabies. They test for AIDS. They test for all kinds of HIV and all kinds of other things like gonorrhea. Things that can be avoided if you simply live like Councilman Greg Smith lives. You see, don't cheat on your wife, don't go out with hookers, and most of all, stay out of the 6th District where Nuri's running her prostitution ring and crime ring. So as long as you do that, you don't need IDICs to help you. But if you're having trouble with your dick, make sure to go to IDIC. See, we always help people. So now the 6th supplemental contract to the Civilian Modified Flexible Benefits Contract. Yeah, this was my idea. I actually, and Councilman Curran Price will elaborate on number 9 because, see, we got to change the rules that you can have anybody you consider to be a spouse as protected under spousal health and other benefits, even if you're a bigamist, even if you're not really married. So also a friendly amendment, and the city attorney came up with this to help out our good friend, is go back retroactively to 2013. Any statements that any city employee made that they were married to somebody when they weren't must be deducted retroactively. Now you're going to have a hard time convincing Greg Smith of this. And the reason why, he's kind of one of these Law and Order kind of assholes. So anyway, you got to watch it. And, because, Greg Smith is here to restore order. But I support Peppa Pig carets, and wherever Current Price is, remember, he has 2 wives, but we can only have one with benefits.
Thank you. Let's see. I'm going to ask that we continue item number 12 and ask for a CAO report. We have one speaker on 12. Do you still want to speak? If so, please come up. Simboa Wright. And you have 1 minute.
Thanks for your time. I just want to say that I'm Simboya Wright. I'm a proud city employee, wastewater collection worker. We are actually all of our wastewater.
Can you identify yourself, please?
Simboya, that's SIMBOA. Last name Wright, WRIGHT. And I'm a wastewater collection worker with the city of Los Angeles. Our guys are really excited about the construction coming back. We're actually in the back talking about it right now, and it's been talked throughout the whole division, clean water division. Just know that we're the largest wastewater collection system in the nation, and we set the standard, and we're really proud of the work we do, and we want to continue to provide this service to the public health and the environment. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. We're proud of you all, too, so thank you. Also, we have one speaker on item number 14. Kevin Acebo.
Mr. Chairman, members, good afternoon. Kevin Acebo, representing ASPCA. Regarding item 14, we left 2 weeks ago about the open-ended question about retroactivity. We submitted a letter to the committee and on the subject. We just want to say that on September 4th in 2018, the council unanimously passed a motion to have a pet-friendly ordinance drafted, and I think it was pretty clear the intent there. We would suggest that retroactivity would go back to that date, and particularly for two important reasons. I think one being already there are 400 units of housing that are in construction, and most recently, a month ago, about $120 million was approved to do more housing to the most vulnerable tenants in Los Angeles. And ironically, if we don't do retroactivity, you may have two kinds of housing, one for pets and one not for the most deserving. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. I'd like to take items 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, and 7 on consent, if there's no objection. So we will, on item 1 and 2, adopt the resolution. Item 3, approve the mayor's recommendation. And item 5, 6, and 7, approve the mayor's recommendations as well. Item number 4.
Item 4, communication from the mayor relative to the exemption of one public safety risk manager for the LAFD from the civil service pursuant to Charter Section 1001B.
Good afternoon, Chair.
Good
committee
afternoon.
members. Alma Guerrero from the Mayor's Office. We would like to submit an exemption request that we're recommending for the fire department for the public safety risk manager. This position is funded and included in their budget, and it would be 146 out of the 150. And this is a new exemption. And if you have any questions.
Yeah. Other departments have found risk managers through the civil service process, so why can't this position be filled through civil service?
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, Council Member. Graham Everett, Deputy Chief, and I'm the Chief of Staff. So this position was previously in the civil service exemption category. We find that the position requires a high degree of specialty in the matters of to minimize our litigation risk and our exposures. And so we found that the exemption is necessary to fill the spot with the appropriate person.
Have efforts ever been made to fill it through civil service?
We did attempt that on our last go-through. This is actually basically a retitle of a previous exempted position. About 2 years ago, it was an exempt position. We tried through civil service, so we're going back to
That
the
didn't
exemption.
work out in the previous
Correct.
effort. All right. Well, in that case, do you have questions,
See, there
Mr.
needs to
Smith?
be specialization. People really know what the fire department does to understand.
That's correct. That's correct, sir, yes.
All right. So we will approve the mayor's recommendation without objection.
Thank you.
Item number 8.
CO report to proposed contract with IDEX Laboratories, Inc. for diagnostic laboratory testing services. This matter has also been referred to the Health, Education, Neighborhoods, Parks, Arts, and River Committee.
Welcome.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Catherine Chico with the Department of Animal Services.
Brian O., Office of the CAO. The Department of Animal Services is requesting authority to execute a professional services agreement with IDX Laboratories, Inc. for diagnostic laboratory testing services. The city staff will utilize these services during medical treatment to test blood, tissue, and fecal samples of animals in animal care shelters in the zoo, and as well as the animal shelters run by Animal Services. The term of the contract is for 3 years from July 1st, 2018 through June 30th, 2021, with the option of 3 additional years in 1-year increments for a total of 6 years. And the agreement includes a compensation limit of $50,000 per year for both departments, Animal Service Department and the LE Zoo, for a total amount not to exceed $100,000 per year. The department is here to answer any questions that you may have.
So are you expecting increased usage of these services, or is it pretty much similar to past years?
It'll be similar to past years for both the animal services and the zoo department.
And any concern that this won't be an adequate amount of funding for it?
No, both animal services and the zoo feel that the amount is sufficient for the term of the contract.
Okay, Mr. Smith, anything additional?
No.
If not, we will approve the CAO's recommendation on this without objection.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item number 9.
Item 9, CAO report relative to proposed 6th supplemental agreement to contract number C-116636 with Mercer Human Resource Services for the administration of the city's civilian modified flexible benefits program through March 31st, 2019.
Good afternoon. I'm Melissa Velasco with the CAO. So the item before you is a request from personnel to extend the city's contract with Mercer HR Services. Mercer provides third-party administration services for the LA Well Civilian Benefits Program. The extension is effective retroactively for a brief period of 3 months at the beginning of this year, from January 1st through March 31st, 2019. Personnel conducted a new request for proposals process and selected a new vendor to provide these TPA services. So this extension just provides sufficient time for Mercer to complete their final sort of administrative tasks until the new vendor took over on April 1st.
Now, the contract was to be extended for a period that ended in April, so why are we doing this retroactively in June? Why wasn't it done earlier?
My name is Stephen Montagna. I'm here to represent the Personnel Department. So this negotiation of the last 3 months of the contract took some time between the discussions involving our counsel as well as counsel for Mercer. One of the reasons that it took that much time was because since this was the closeout of a long-term relationship with Mercer and a pretty massive amount of record-keeping data that they had maintained, we wanted to make sure that there were certain protections that were part of this that included incorporating the updated general contracting requirements, particularly with respect to our ability to access data now that the contract contract term has ended. So when you're doing a record-keeping transition of this magnitude, even though much of the data and much of the records transferred to the new record keeper, it's simply not possible to maintain all of that or to have all of that go over to the new TPA. So we needed to make sure that we've got the ability to go in, up to the next 3 years to be able to access records and information, and that helps us to support our members.
Did Mercer compete for the successor position?
They did. They submitted a request for proposal response, but they actually did not pass the minimum qualifications or sort of the requirements that they had to meet our general contracting requirements. So their proposal actually couldn't be considered.
That seems hard to believe. So how would a contractor that worked for us for so many years not meet our minimum standards?
Well, it's really it's the obligation of the vendor to comply with certain process requirements. That was the obstacle. So when we issue an RFP, vendors need to be timely in their responses. They need to submit all of the requested documentation. That's part of our general contracting requirements, not necessarily related to the services, and they need to do that in accordance with our rules, or their proposal can't be considered.
Wow. How would a company screw that up like that?
It's, to be frank, it's not the first time that I've seen that happen. So it does happen. And actually, interestingly, after we had completed our process, and in fact only within the last few months, we found that the new provider has actually acquired the record-keeping arm that we were working with under Mercer. So now, and so that when that change becomes effective, we actually will, I mean, where we have wound up is we're working with the same vendor that we would have been working with anyway, and that's because of the acquisition.
So you won't have the substantial headache, I would imagine, of transferring all the records if you're working with the same record-keeping vendor?
It should be much easier now. Yeah, I mean, we took care of all of this. You know, I mean, we did this transition was a year in the making. So we had done what we needed to do to meet our objectives. But if we run into any problems, yeah, this just gives us more leverage and more ability to get to that information.
Okay, Mr. Smith, anything additional?
Doesn't Mercer also handle sworn personnel? Police fire?
In terms of benefits administration, I don't believe that they that the association that administers their benefits program, I think that's done in-house. I don't believe that they work with an outside outside administrator the way that we do.
No, I thought they did.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, if there's no other questions, we'll approve the CAO's recommendations without objection. Thank you. Item number 10.
Item 10, CAO report relative to proposed amended and restated professional services agreement with Cornerstone On Demand, contract number C-127047 for services effective February 11th, 2016 through February 10th, 2021, and to increase expenditure authority to a total not to exceed $4,178,542.
Good afternoon again, Melissa Velasco with the CAO. So in this particular one, the Personnel Department is requesting authority to amend the city's existing contract with Cornerstone On Demand to increase the compensation by about $2 million for a 5-year contract term that will be effective February 2016 through February 2021. Cornerstone provides the city's learning management system through this contract, which allows all city employees to take both mandatory and optional online training, and it also offers other modules, including employee onboarding.
So what's the significance of increasing the expenditure authority by a couple $1 million?
Good afternoon, council members. My name is Art Irigoyen. I represent the Personnel Department. As far as adding $2 million, this extends the contract for an additional 2 years. And it also provides additional services that departments can use as well as a licensing that's part of the Cornerstone online system.
So what exactly do we get out of the extra $2 million?
So $1,058,000 is for the licensing, and then the other services includes optional services, additional services to include task orders. It includes it includes additional orders that other departments can use as part of the services that they offer, such as different workshops, on-site training, advanced named administrators, certified program managers, and additional user licenses.
So why did we not just extend the original contract as opposed to amending and restating the contract the way we did? What's the difference? Why do we do it that way?
So oftentimes it's at the recommendation of the city attorney when they're looking at the existing contract and sort of restating the items, and depends on sort of a case-by-case basis. Oftentimes they'll request that we restate the overall existing contract as opposed to amend it, just so that there's in one place, in one document, all of the provisions associated with the contract, as opposed to an amendment where maybe you would have a contract plus an amendment, and you kind of have to look at all three of those items to get the full picture of the city's and the contractor's obligation. So it's sort of a technical change, if you will.
Now, I know there were additional modules that were supposed to be developed. Did those ever get developed?
So yes, there were departments that used some of the modules, that did use the modules, additional modules. And generally, they were used for a specified period, or they were used as like pilot programs within those departments. And so that's the extent that we had used them, that those departments had used them.
Okay.
And we still make it available as part of this contract because we still have departments that are coming to us asking to use those modules as well.
Good. And last question I have, how do you plan on funding the extra couple $1 million? Is it from existing resources, or are you going to make an additional request to the city?
Yes, the Personnel Department plans to use funds from fiscal year 2018-19 to cover the first year's cost, and then use fiscal year 2019-2020 funds to cover the second year's cost for the licensing fees. Now, some of the optional services that I mentioned earlier that other departments may want to use and that have shown interest as well, such as DWP and LAWA, they would be able to use those services, and then we would recoup the cost if they did use any of those services.
From the individual departments using
Yes.
this? Okay. Very good. Mr. Smith, anything additional?
This has not been to Budget and Finance yet?
Not to my knowledge.
I don't believe it was referred to Budget and Finance
Wasn't?
Committee. I don't believe so, sir.
No.
That seems odd. You're doubling the amount of money, and it's not in this year's budget, so why weren't they looking at it?
I think in this particular situation, the contract obligation, the amount that we have to pay the contractor as far as the license payments is for the learning management system that we're using, that money is budgeted in the personnel department. So the additional obligation are those optional services that we were discussing, which other departments can elect to use. And so the city is not obligated to pay the contractor. It would only be in the situation where we request those services, in which case we would have to pay them. So we're not anticipating that there would be a, right, correct. So they would need to identify those funds, so we're not anticipating that there would be a shortfall anywhere associated with the contract.
So it would come from all their existing budgets?
Correct. They would need to identify funding in order to pay for that service if they wanted to use it.
Well, you can rob anyone if it's a penny, that's fine. All right, well, if there's no further comments, we'll approve the CAO's recommendations on this item. Item number 11.
Number 11, CO report relative to the establishment of the Department of Neighborhood Empowerment City Idea Hub.
Well, good afternoon and happy
Good afternoon.
Juneteenth. I'm Bianca Swan, Project Coordinator for the Innovation and Performance Commission. The Innovation and Performance Commission recommended funding for an Innovation Fund pilot, City Idea Hub, a partnership with Dunn and ITA. In order for the pilot to be a success, the Commission is recommending the authorization of one project assistant who will be responsible for the project facilitation. I have a representative from Dunn and ITA who can answer questions as well as myself.
Well, the staff report doesn't make it clear exactly what the City Idea Hub is, so I wonder if you could tell us a little bit more about what exactly this project is and what a successful pilot would look like.
Sure. Jean Holm, the Assistant General Manager in ITA. So Idea Scale is the ability to kind of connect to the public or internally through a more graphically interesting way of organizing ideas and innovations. It's currently being used by DWP and LAWA, and if the pilot moves forward, we would actually pool funds from those two departments with a smaller than normal amount from the city that would allow us citywide licensing. Currently, an example of what LAWA is doing is their innovation hangar. And so this is a way for internal ideas to bubble up about how to increase the flow of traffic through the airport, or different ways of helping people move from one terminal to another faster. So it's an internal ideation. People create ideas. The ideas show up graphically in ways that people can upvote or downvote them, and then they can also add comments or further ideas onto it. I used this product before when I was with the White House on challenge.gov, and on challenge.gov we would have a variety of different challenges that we were trying to solve on a national level, and people would pitch ideas. And so, for example, we did with young children, we were asking them, tell it why it would be so cool to work in the government. And so we were trying to recruit sort of a young generation, and people would create these videos, and the videos would get voted up or down, and people could kind of congregate around it. In the back end of Idea Scale is also a workflow, which allows whoever is running one of these initiatives to be able to take the best ideas, or the ones that are most interesting, and actually move them into a project. So it goes from the early ideation all the way to a project, like project management capability, so that it just makes it easier for departments who are interested in using something like this to engage with the public in a much simpler way that allows anonymous participation, or you can ask for people to, to register as well. But it allows a much easier way to provide something behind which we have data analytics, to be able to look at what are the most useful ideas that are coming out and what are the ones that people are congregating around.
And what would a done use of this look like?
Gracie Liu, Interim General Manager for Department of Neighbor Empowerment. So our role in this is to help create the campaigns, both for the city departments as for internal usage as well as external usage. So we have an Office of Civic Engagement that is we've been building for the last few years and received more funding for this next fiscal year. And so that position would be with the Office of Civic Engagement assisting the different departments to have an effective campaign for Idea Scale. And would this position be a civil service position, or would you need an exemption for it? It's an exempt position. It's a project assistant position. We wouldn't be using any of the 150 or the additional 50 for this exemption. The department, we have an exception because of the election and outreach work that we do through neighbor councils that would allow us to utilize those exemptions if we were to need it. Okay. And if the pilot wasn't successful, what would happen to that employee afterwards? Well, currently the employee it's just a temporary position for the pilot, and my understanding is if it does not work, then that employee would no longer work for the department.
They'd be at will?
That's correct.
And let's see. So what are all the departments that are looking at participating in this program?
So we have a list of departments who have already expressed interest. It includes ITA is interested because we have a Smart Cities initiative that we've been putting together, and so we're interested in hearing what the public defines a smart city as and kind of having a conversation about that. The Mayor's Office of Public Safety is interested around the Shake Alert LA early earthquake warning app. It's very popular. We have about 500,000 users right now, but we're interested in how we could make it more usable for people, what content people would like, what new features. We'd like to have sort of an open and transparent conversation with people around that. There's also the Innovation and Performance Commission itself is interested because they get these ideas coming up from city departments. They want to be able to take it from ideation all the way to project management. LAWA uses it for their innovation hangar, their internal ideation, and Department of Water and Power uses it as an employee suggestion box.
Very good. Mr. Smith, anything additional?
I have two questions. Who decides if these ideas are good or bad? Is there just this one person, or is there a group?
So I think it varies from group to group, from initiative to initiative. So Bianca can certainly talk about IPC. The way that we normally look at it is Idea Scale has done this throughout the country and very large initiatives. They have best practices, and part of the licensing cost we have actually has them giving us training and support and services to understand how to create these initiatives. So the idea, the sort of goodness of the ideas can be determined either by some process that the team running that initiative decides, or it could simply be open for public voting. So it kind of depends on how it's organized.
And that's essentially how the commission would use it for the Innovation Fund. When we receive submissions, it would allow the public to be able to provide input that the commissioners can use to help make decisions on whether or not to advance these items.
Bigger concern, intellectual property. If someone gives you an idea, how do we not be liable for stealing the idea?
Well, for the Innovation Fund, it's stated on the application that once they submit it, that the idea is the city's.
So each campaign would, we use a model called Creative Commons, which says that these ideas are either owned wholly by the contributor, or they're owned wholly by the city, or they're owned by the contributor but able to be used for non-commercial purposes. So there's about 5 different kinds of Creative Commons licenses, and we would just encourage each campaign to select which one makes most sense. And when you submitted an idea or participated in an initiative, it would be clear which Creative Commons license applied.
Very good.
So with those, we don't have any legal concerns. Presumably, we've looked at all the angles on that.
Correct.
Until we get sued.
Yeah, exactly, until we get sued.
It's a pilot.
Well, if there's no other questions and comments, I will ask that we approve the CAO's recommendations without objection.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
sir.
you.
Thank you.
Item 13.
Item 13, Personnel Department report relative to the plan year 2020 LA Well Civilian Benefits Program.
Good afternoon, committee members. We're pleased to present you the 2020 LA Well Benefits Program for adoption. My name is David Sanders. I'm the chairperson for the Joint Labor Management Benefits Committee. With me is my vice chairperson, Wendy Macy, and also we have Steve Montani with the Personnel Department Employee Benefits Division. And as you know, the JLMBC is responsible for the design of the LA Well program. And each spring we consider the proposed renewals for our healthcare providers and other vendors. And we also establish the costs and premiums for the next following year. And this year we had another, I think, an exceptional year. Again, we were able to in most cases, have slight increases in the benefit. In other cases, some of the other provider services, no increase in cost. We were able to make some enhancements in our dental and our vision plan. And our program is strong. We continue to look forward to ways to improve our program. We recently created an ad hoc subcommittee to conduct strategic review of the LA Well program and explore ways that it may evolve in the future. We're looking at our overall menu of offerings and best practices and other programs to see if there are ways to best meet the needs of our members. I want to provide an opportunity for Wendy to address some of to talk a little bit about our success, and Stephen in turn.
Thank you, Wendy Macy, in my capacity as a co-chair of the Joint Labor Management Benefits Committee. I want to reiterate what Dave said. This has really been a collaborative partnership among labor and management to come up with what we consider to be excellent benefit selections, but the work doesn't stop here. I also want to mention that we've also been looking to the following year, and for example, for Anthem, we were able to secure a rate cap. So this allows the city to have a little bit more predictability in our budget with respect to some of the benefits costs. And I want to emphasize how important it is what David was talking about, our look at plan design. You'll see when Stephen goes over the report that there's a whole menu of different benefits that we currently offer to our staff. But as we start to evolve and look at how our workforce is changing and some of their preferences and needs may be changing, with some of the new, the millennials and the Gen Y, Gen Z coming into the workforce, we want to make sure that we continue to have the most innovative benefits possible. Our Live Well program has been really gaining a lot of traction. Some of you may have participated in our festival, our wellness festival across the street last week, I think it was. And we'll be implementing a new third-party administrator for the wellness program, Limeade, and so that will provide a lot of fun and engaging opportunities for our staff to really take some control over their health and their wellness. So at this point, I'd like to turn it over to Stephen, and he can go over the details of the report with you.
So just to restate again, I think this is probably the best year that we've had in terms of the renewals. Certainly that I've ever seen. What we're looking at is essentially if we weren't required to pay there's a particular fee that you have to pay under the Affordable Care Act, and if we didn't have that, we only had very modest increases to zero increases in virtually all of the various plans that we have. So we'll start with Kaiser, which is coming through with a 1.38% increase. But for the ACA fee, that increase in premium would be less than 0.5%. So that's really outstanding. With respect to Anthem, if you took out the ACA fee, they're essentially giving us a rate pass or no increase in premium for next year. And as Wendy mentioned, we were able, as part of contract negotiations, to obtain something we didn't have before going into this process, which is a not to exceed rate cap of 7% for 2021. So that was very successful as well. Turning to dental, we were able to also we're able to negotiate no change in premium for 2020 and 2021. We also, though, at the same time, were able to create some structural improvements in the benefit levels for that plan. And if you'd like, I'm more than happy to walk you through some of the details of what those look like. But one of the changes will be to the benefit of approximately 2,700 members that utilize the service. The other, we're thinking would be benefiting minimally about 1,800 individuals. On vision, we also negotiated no change in premium costs for both 2020 and 2021. We also got some benefit enhancements from them in terms of covered benefits that they'll pay at no cost to the member for individuals that have been diagnosed with diabetes. So that's an improvement. For the standard, which provides all of our insurance plans, the life plans, as well as disability, also we were able to extend their guarantee of no increase in premium on the disability plan, which we didn't have before going into this process. That will go out to 2022. And then for WageWorks, which has our tax advantage spending accounts, and as well as Optum, we have rate guarantees that go through 2023 with WageWorks and 2021 for Optum. So the other elements of this report, there are some things that we improve or increase every year. One of them is increasing the maximum benefit amount for those who have the base disability insurance plan. So that's gone up, or will go up next year. And then also we've increased the up to the federal limit what the maximum contribution amount is for those participating in the healthcare flexible spending accounts. As we talked about earlier, we implemented this year. We implemented the new TPA for the benefits program, which as I mentioned before, was a major accomplishment. And as Wendy mentioned, in probably just a few weeks, we'll be onboarding and providing the announcement on the new wellness platform for Limeade, which is a new way for our members to be able to personalize and customize their wellness objectives, and it'll also give them the ability to do this in more of a social way, so that they can share successes and we can take advantage of that kind of sort of peer-to-peer reinforcement that is what we've learned is really critical to a successful program. And that really sort of takes us out of in the wellness front to being less of a laggard and more of a leader. This is not a typical model. It's sort of I would sort of look at it as more in the way of innovation of the way employers are moving to offer wellness programs. So with that, I'm happy to take any questions, or any of us happy to take any questions.
So most basic thing, I probably know it, but I'm not 100% sure. Does the city pay for all increases, or does the insured population pay for any part of increases?
Well, increases are, it depends on what plan, and it depends on whether the bargaining unit you're in is required to pay for, in the case of the health plans, is required to pay to pay 10% of the premium or not. even if for those plans or for those labor organizations that are not paying the 10%, the maximum subsidy that is provided by the city is no greater than the Kaiser family rate. So where you see that having an impact is with the PPO plan, and those members who have coverage at levels that where the cost of the premium is higher than the maximum subsidy, they would pay for that.
Okay. And I know there's some question about how generous Delta Dental's benefit is, because I know if you get a crown, it costs around $2,000. 80% is covered. If you have a root canal, it costs around $3,000 or more. 80% is covered, but there's a maximum benefit of only $1,500. So you have a $3,000 root canal, you only get $1,500 covered. How hard is it to increase that? And have we looked at having a benefit that provides more coverage to the employees?
So we have done a couple of rounds in recent years of increasing benefit levels. So back in 2016, after our last procurement, we actually, as part of that procurement, we were able to obtain a waiver for preventive services counting towards the annual maximum. That's worth, for most members, it's probably worth about $300 or $400. So that it takes it takes the effective value of that $1,500 closer to $1,800 to $1,900. From what we've learned in terms of dental plan design, we're probably above where most plans are at. There are some plans that where you've got that the maximum annual benefit level would be $2,000. So that would be sort of, that would be at the what would be considered the upper end of what the benefit design is.
So it's really the most generous levels that are out there.
Right. And that's not limited necessarily to the vendor. I mean, this is sort of how these plans are typically structured.
So has JLMBC ever looked at this issue closely to see whether there's a way to get a stronger program for city employees?
Well, I think we've tried to make enhancements. We have these enhancements this year. We made some enhancements in 2016. I think this is certainly a topic that could be looked at when we start working with the subcommittee that will be looking at the core menu and sort of any ways that we can explore innovations in plan design.
I mean, I'm not basing it on my own experience, but I have had a complicated root canal and a crown in the same year, and I think I wound up paying $7,500 or $8,000 for it, and $1,500 are covered. And you look at it and say, well, that wasn't much coverage. That didn't do anything for me. I assume there are plenty of employees that have that same experience.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, it is a with dental plan insurance benefits, they're typically not structured the way that health insurance plans are. But that doesn't mean that it's not something that this is something that the JLMBC could look at.
Yeah, I'd ask us to take a look at it for the next opportunity. I think obviously it's a complicated issue, and try to stick it to you with this at the last second, but in the following year, I think that'd be a good idea.
Just to expand on what Stephen was saying, just a couple of the enhancements that we did put into the dental plan we think will be of benefit to the members. One is, I guess, an enhanced coverage for what I call deep cleaning versus the regular teeth cleaning. But the other one I think that a lot of people will benefit from is there's more coverage for the white crowns, the ones that look like your teeth, versus just the metallic ones, and that's going to help a lot of people. Another thing that members can take advantage of if they have dental expenses that are going to be in excess of the plan is to use the flexible spending plan, which a lot of people don't necessarily do, but at least it allows you to set aside some dollars, which, as Stephen mentioned, the annual amount is increased, and that allows you at least to at least do that on a sort of pre-tax basis. So it saves the member a little bit of money. I mean, the downside of that is, of course, it's kind of use it or lose it. So you have to kind of have this sort of be an anticipated procedure, versus, wanting to risk having to lose the money in the end.
Yeah, I don't know if there's enough publicity around that program, but I think that is a useful idea. And I know of it, but I don't really think of it because most of the time it wouldn't be a positive. So I don't know if we could put in an occasional reminder into whatever materials we send to employees, because I think it is a valuable
So as
asset to
chairman,
use.
also I'm the director of it, SCI Local 721. Our members have the same concerns. How do we enhance it? Cost is an issue for both on your side of the house and the members' pocketbook. But we are absolutely looking to move in that direction and enhance that program sooner than later, especially by the 2021 contract.
Very good. And I know Optum is expanding the benefit to include greater non-clinical work-life support services. I wonder if you could tell us a little bit about what exactly the scope will be of that.
Sure. So, when people typically are thinking of employee assistance programs, they often think of them as offering clinical services only, and what that often means is counseling services. And what we wanted to do in our last procurement and working with Optum was to really provide them with more resources for sorts of non-clinical everyday things. Maybe they're they might be looking, as one example, might be looking for a wedding planner and might not realize that something like that is a resource that they could go to this program for and simply get information about who they might work with. And the reason we're really trying to emphasize those types of services is that we're hoping as people utilize them more, there's less of a concern or feeling less of the stigma that might keep them from utilizing this program when they're dealing with something that's really serious and where they could really benefit from counseling services.
Yeah, I don't think too many people are aware of this particular service, so that could also use some publicity going forward.
Right. Well, that's really our objective, working in partnership with Optum to really push that awareness, and in fact, it's part of our measurement. Sort of, we're working with them working with them to set goals and to be able to measure utilization, so that to the extent that they attempt a strategy to drive that utilization up and it's not working, then we'll go back and we'll look at something different. But that's one of the core areas for them where we're really pushing them and looking for accountability and results.
Great. And Blue Cross and Anthem Blue Cross and Kaiser, I think, are each putting up $1 million in wellness funding. Will that fund services by Limeade? Do anything else? Where is that funding headed?
Right. So that funding is used to pay for Limeade. It's also used to pay for the internal staffing costs that we have for the 2 positions that we have that work with the program, and then the balance of the funds are used for putting on events. So Wendy had mentioned the Wellness Festival. Those types of events, we have many of them. We have events happening every month. So when we need to pay for resources, to be able to fund things like we've been offering cooking classes and we've been doing webinars, all of that. That's what we use those resources for to be able to promote engagement.
Very good, Mr. Smith. Any other good comments? All right. So I'm going to ask that we approve the Personnel Department report and formally request, as we talked about, to direct the JLMBC, working with its ad hoc plan design subcommittee, to develop options and recommendations for enhancing the dental benefit levels and a possible increase to the annual maximum benefit, and report back to PA committee before initiating your plan design renewal for plan year 2021. So we'll do that without objection. So that will be the order, and thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Item number 14.
Item 14, continued from June 5th, 2019. City Attorney Report and Ordinance relative to adding Article 17 to Chapter 4 of the Los Angeles Municipal Code to allow tenants to possess pets in publicly financed residential rental housing. This matter has also been referred to the Housing Committee.
Elaine Zong from the City Attorney's Office.
I'm Tim Elliott from the Housing Department.
Okay, well, I think I have one primary question, which is, can this ordinance be enforced so that the policy applies in any situation where a tenant moves into a publicly financed housing development, regardless of when it was built?
So, I mean, generally speaking, it is possible for the ordinance to be applied to existing construction. The draft ordinance would simply need to be amended to reflect that intent. Currently, it's written to involve new construction. There's certainly a risk that a current borrower may challenge this in litigation based on arguments that they entered into loan obligations based on existing city requirements. They might argue that the ordinance impacts certain contractual rights, but this would be a case-by-case analysis. That
So
said,
someone that doesn't have a dog might object that somebody else was allowed in who does have a dog?
I'm just talking about the loan obligations. There's certain loans that already contractually require the borrower to follow existing
Could you
law.
speak into the mic a little more further? For some reason, I'm picking up on it.
There are certain loan agreements that already require the borrower to follow existing law. It's just unclear at this point whether or not this is the case for every loan agreement that the city has entered into.
So I'm having trouble understanding a circumstance, though, where someone would object or sue. Would it be that they had a dog and they weren't allowed to move in, so they had to get rid of their dog? What's a circumstance where somebody who applied before would object to us requiring a dog be allowed?
We're talking about from the borrower's side, the developer who is undertaking the loan, not a person who's moving
So
in.
the developer would object that they had to have animals on site.
Sorry, Ed Gibson, Housing Community Investment Department. Hopefully I can add a little light outside the legal context, if you will. I think the challenge on a go-forward basis, I think that's pretty straightforward. We have regulations, we go public, we make comments, they're incorporated, and they roll forward. When we go retroactive, it wasn't the agreement that everybody signed up for. If it's a law, which is where I think the city attorney's going, then our documents clearly state you must follow all laws and rules in that way. If it's a policy type motion, I think that's where the challenge starts to come in, because they came in and they signed the reg agreements of everything we required them to do at that moment. So kind of retroactively requiring them to do something is where she's basically stating, and we've seen that little pushback already, where people start to question that ability. But what we do have is, of course, parts of the law that said if you special needs animal or something else along those lines, yes. We already have some projects that will accept pets, yes. And I think it's that next quotient inside the portfolio where that wasn't foreseen, if you will.
So if we write this as an ordinance as opposed to just making it an internal policy, do we think we're on reasonable footing?
I'm going to defer to the city attorney since I'm not a lawyer, but I think we'll encounter some pushback because it's after the fact. But how you implement it is key. So if you hit that legal part.
I mean, the ordinance can be applied to existing housing. It's just the potential for challenges is still there. And that's all I'm flagging.
Okay, Mr. Smith, any questions? Well, I think it sounds like we have a reasonable enough chance to go forward, so I would encourage us to concur with the Housing Committee's action with an amendment to change the effective date. And I guess so it would be retroactive in perpetuity. Would that be how we would state it? Well, that would be the general direction, however you want to frame it. And we would concur with the second recommendation of the Housing Committee's action on this item to instruct HCID in consultation with the Department of Animal Services, Council District 5, and appropriate stakeholders to prepare guidelines for the implementation of the ordinance and make said guidelines available to all housing owners and developers.
And if I may, the city attorney's office. We're going to cross some serious legal issues here.
Yes,
Thank you.
yes, I would. I didn't list them on this, but I think that was implicit that they would absolutely have to be included. So that will be the motion without objection. And anything else before us on this agenda? Desk is cleared. With no other business before us, we are adjourned.